I'm very excited to talk today about the dynamic lunar Greek goddess of the hunt, Artemis. But what is she really hunting, and why, and how can it help you? It's not what you might think. Hello, beautiful people. Welcome to Mythic Mel. I'm your host, Melinda, and I'm very excited to talk today about the dynamic lunar Greek goddess of the hunt, Artemis. You've probably imagined or seen her in art as the one who carries the golden bow and arrow into the forest. She's ferociously dedicated to protecting women in childbirth, young animals, and children, and the helpless. Artemis is connected to all wild things, especially the deer and the bear. But what is she really hunting, and why? And how can it help you? It's not what you might think. We'll go beyond the surface of Goddess Artemis stories and bring her wisdom down to earth in practical ways. I'll share about my personal connection to the goddess and imagine how Artemis energy might benefit a Reiki practitioner or any healer for that matter. I'll unpack the psychogeography of her birth. That's a very fancy word. It's a fancy way of saying that the place Artemis was born has a spirit all its own, and that explains a lot about what she's about in ways that might have you thinking about your own birth, about the place and the circumstances of where and how you were born and who surrounded you, and how has that energy or energies played out in your life. This is always really good food for thought for anyone interested in understanding themselves better and really understanding what it is that has caused them to behave the way that they did. And then little by little, as we grow, learn, and evolve, we start to shed the old stories that are not really in service of our highest and best good anymore. Artemis energy can be a great medicine for overthinkers. We tend to be a very mental culture right now. And so I think a lot of us are really thinking way too much. Or if you experience apathy or a sense of disconnection or soul loss, we could use Artemis medicine for this type of experience. There's a healing modality called wilderness therapy that is very much reminds me of like Goddess Artemis. It's built on the premise that spending time in nature offers a sensory escape, and it brings people into the present moment. So like when you take a walk in the woods, we know it can reduce stress. It boosts moods, and it lowers levels of the stress hormone cortisol in the body. Artemis energy helps you plug into that vital energy bank of your essential self. That is the primal wild core that keeps you marching forward with a sense of aliveness, a sense of divine purpose, even if sometimes you feel a bit lost. We all do from time to time. We all feel lost, but also found at the same time. We're both all the time. We just have to keep on keeping on. We have to keep learning, keep evolving, and tap into whatever is the best medicine for ourselves at the time. Use our tools. Maybe you're going through challenges right now. Goddess Artemis can help you navigate them with courage and resilience. You can draw on her fierceness, her focus, and bravery to get you through things. And if necessary, you may need to draw a strong boundary around yourself for a while to perform your energy hygiene rituals, to feel into your own needs, to be able to even go inward and identify your animal instincts and acknowledge to yourself what you truly desire. and then be ready to defend the sanctity of your attention, your body, and your time. Artemis will not allow you to compromise on your boundaries. You deserve your time to care and tend for yourself in the sacred cleansing waters. You have to replenish, you have to restore. Because how can you bring balance to the ecosystem if you're out of balance yourself? There's a very famous Artemis story in the myths where a hunter accidentally comes across the goddess as she's bathing naked in a spring outside. He stood there spying on her just a moment too long. And the moment that Artemis noticed, she was furious. How dare he spy on her in her vulnerable state of undress and disturb her sacred peace, disrupt her time in the bath? She showed him no mercy, turned the hunter immediately into a stag. And so instead of whatever he was hunting, he became the prey. He was devoured in the end by his own dogs. So, never cross a goddess in her bath. So where Athena, goddess Athena energy highlights, as I talked about in my previous podcast, the higher mind and the marriage of logic and intuition to help you strategize success in the real world, in the mundane world, Artemis leans into the pulse of your blood and the wilderness of trust beyond logic. Trust beyond logic. If you aren't sure what that means, it's fun to take an intuitive development class. I loved mine, and you'll learn to tap into aspects of you that are often subtle, but surface wisdom that can be beneficial to you in your life. You'll begin to start trusting beyond logic, to begin to understand how the senses can be trained to become instruments of higher knowing and help guide you to make choices that serve your life and your health's highest and best good. Like the lunar goddess that Artemis is, you'll start to expand your sensory and notice subtleties in the dark, to perceive with your third eye, beyond the veils of illusion, into things and energies hidden beneath the surface. Do you ever get too much in your head or have internal mental arguments where you convince yourself to stay in situations that don't really feel good to you any longer? Maybe they once did, but they don't anymore. Or do you agree to things that go against what your body is telling you to do or what your body really wants? Things that encourage numbness rather than aliveness. Or do you go through times when you twist in thought and bend logic? Artemis medicine to the rescue. Artemis knows nature is the true physician. She goes into the wilderness. She coats her body in mud. She merges with animal energies and she naps with deer. Treat your body like it's your beloved pet and take it outside. Go for a walk in the woods. Spend time in the light of the sun. Observe what's going on with creatures other than you. Also, listen to the song Take a Giant Step Outside Your Mind by Carole King. I love that version by Taj Mahal. Check it out. And lean into spiritual practices that harmonize the mind-body connection. Things like yoga or Reiki, Qigong, or Tai Chi. These things can bring more ease to the body and freedom to the mind. And because we're talking about Artemis, maybe learn something like archery. It's always good to learn new things to help you keep aliveness sort of surfacing around. Don't get stuck. If you're lucky, you might find a place to stand under a waterfall for a while. Or in my case, an outdoor hose rigged as a shower. Listen, it doesn't have to be fancy. I'm out there every morning with my cold water plunge. I'm not saying you have to do it. I know people don't like always to put themselves through that. It's really very individual, but That's what I love to do. In any case, the human animal body isn't meant to stay stuck indoors in front of a screen, to stay stuck in the mind and constricted in the heart. It's meant to move. It's meant to explore. It's full of potential. And discovering the greater fabric of the universe is our mission. Is there anything coming up for you? Any exciting ideas that you've put on the back burner or that just came to you now? Pause the video. Forget the video. Go make a quick list of adventures that you want to have and then actually take action. Do one of the ideas. Follow through. That's Artemis energy. Unlike Athena, Artemis leads by example rather than verbal mentoring. Artemis demonstrates the power of instinct and the wisdom of natural impulse and how important it is to nurture innate aptitudes. And that's the talents you are born with. We all have special talents and gifts what we were born with. And those are important. We don't just shrug them off like we came in with us for a reason. And Artemis reminds you to feel what is essential and true in you. And kill off anything that comes in the way. Use the bow and arrow. Because self-doubt and limiting belief, fear of failure, not trying, those are energies that do need to be transformed by the golden arrow into courage and hope and why not, and satisfaction with process. To bring the Artemis archetype to life, as I said, I'll be sharing a personal story about the woman who is the Artemis, the Diana. That's the Roman goddess of the hunts, name for Artemis. The Diana of my life is my very own mother, Deanna. Don't try to tame her or domesticate her. And by the same token, she'll encourage your wild side and point out the gold, the healing gold of your instinctive nature. Everyone needs an Artemis type as a friend. You're lucky if you have one. This is the person who knows you, the true you, and who appreciates your crazy aspects, the one who, when the times get tough and you feel vulnerable or down, she's going to be there, or she or he, with strong, or they, protective presence, sitting with you as you moan, reflecting back to you your strength, your authenticity that they know, the person who recognizes your gifts and who appreciates your unique way, and the person who midwives you through any raw new life that's emerging. And it reminds you of who you really are. And they do not should all over you. I love that expression. Don't should on me. On the other hand, if you aren't true to yourself, or if you misuse your power and take advantage of those who are weaker than you, an Artemis friend will call you out. They will shoot you with the truth arrow and bring things into right balance. Artemis is nothing if not an ethical hunter. I do have a very Artemis type of mom. Now remember, she is a virgin goddess. Artemis did not have children, biological children, but she had tons of non-biological children that we'll talk about later. But my mother, being an Artemis type, has been very lucky and liberating for me. And I am very happy to share her with you. You can borrow her anytime. She has lots of energy. She still does in her 80s. She may have sometimes pushed me beyond my comfort zones and prodded me to travel and have very strange adventures when I might rather have been curled up with my book in a corner. But I have never regretted these adventures. No matter how strange, I am so grateful for them. And believe me, they have been strange. But my mom never tried to shame me, not once. She never tried to change me, not once, or make me anything other than the natural essence of who I was and am. And in the same way, I've been a wild Artemis mother type myself. I honor my daughter's nature, and I've cleared the space around her growing up so she could evolve in her own unique way and shine her brilliant light into the world. And that was one of my main missions in life, was to allow her to be exactly who she was. It's a beautiful thing to allow people to be exactly who they are. Artemis energy has you leaning into the wild places that fuel your sense of adventure. This could be the forest of hidden places deep within you, as well as uncharted places in the outer world. There are no guided tours on the map of Artemis. You have to feel what is true for you and go your own way. And you don't have to explain yourself to anyone. And this way takes bravery. It takes self-reliance, self-trust, and faith in the universe. It takes focused intention. It's not an easy way, but it's the best way. I believe Artemis energy is present for Reiki practitioners that have gone beyond the guidebook, so to speak. They've begun to increasingly sense subtle energies and trust themselves to go beyond prescribed order of hand positions and into the wilds, the healing wilds of intuitive guidance in a session. Their golden bow and arrow senses they can now instinctively travel to the heart of energetic blockages or dead-end old stories that need to be pierced. They need to be pierced through in order to wake up, to move, to be felt, to be released, so that metaphoric new birth for the seeker can occur. Like the goddess Athena, Artemis is known as a virgin goddess. As I talked about with Athena, virgin goddesses are my favorite because they are foundational influences in the quest of self-knowledge and self-mastery. And they prod you to identify your core values. What do I think? What do I feel? What's best for me? Like Athena, the goddess of independent thinking and strategy, who encourages us to locate the Parthenon of consciousness, higher mind, so to speak, and ask the question, what do I really think about this, before proceeding with the game plan. Artemis asks, how do you feel right now? What senses are zinging in your body? Take a breath. Listen in. How are you feeling? Don't repress. Don't mask things. Take time for yourself. Do you need to take time to just go into the wilderness for a bit? Or do you need to hunt with your golden arrow of truth and penetrate a situation that needs the situation that needs to transform or die? Are you being true to yourself? Do you trust your animal instinct? Why not? Are you willing to rewild yourself from time to time so your intuitive senses don't get too dulled by domestication and the vibrations of others? Artemis goes her own way into the universe, using her body as a compass. You don't always have to know where you're going to be heading in the right direction. And I'll say again, being a virgin goddess doesn't mean literal virginity. It's an indicator of an energy that checks in with its primal, pure self essence. It's not primarily defined by partnership, by marriage, or compromise. It's virgin in the sense of purity, being of independent mind and spirit, living a pulse of freedom, away from the need to please or placate others. Speaking of that, not having to please others, let's get back to the womb host from which I emerged, Deanna. My mom chose to live a very unconventional and independent life. She could not live any other way. She really could not be domesticated. It's just her nature. She was firstborn in her family. She was born with a very deeply ingrained protective nature. She always was defending her little brothers and sister. She's a Sagittarius, which is also carrying the bow and arrow, like Artemis. Yeah, she's wild. My mom has offended many people, but she's inspired thousands more than she's offended. She left all her husbands and partners to follow the flaming path of the goddess and stay true to herself. Compromise is not her thing when it involves not being able to follow an idea that comes to her, with harm to none. Mom followed her own arrow far and wide. She visited nearly every continent on Earth by herself, and she made a beautiful life, earning her keep and mine as a belly dancer and artist in a foreign country. She brought my sister and I to Greece to live with her and to work with her. And we had a wonderful, wonderful childhood. That was just like a crazy story. I can't even believe it. I don't even think it'd be possible now. But the way that she brought us up, it takes ferocity, it takes self-belief, it takes commitment. And like Artemis, Mom is true to her animal senses. She doesn't complain when she's ill, but she retreats and nurses her wounds in the wild, knowing they will heal in time. She never plays the victim. She acts out only the truth of her nature. And, most important, she expects others. She hopes others and allows others to do the same, to be who they are. Here's a story about me and my mom and the goddess in Greece back in 1999. That was the year before I became a mother, and I underwent the biggest initiation and transformation of my life. And now that I look back on it, I don't think it was an accident that Mom and I made this special trip to a sacred island together that year, just the two of us. At the time, I had no intention of becoming a mother myself. I just had no plans to start a family with my then husband, but I accidentally conceived my magical mythic daughter shortly after this trip with Mom to this island that carries not only Artemis energy, but also has a shrine to the great goddess Isis. Artemis is the goddess associated with female initiations that involve the animal part of us. She's there for laboring women, for the raw and natural process of childbirth and a girl's first menstruation. In the ancient Greek world, not only was it common to thank and make offerings to Artemis for her assistance as a midwife, or if you survived a dangerous birth, but she also created a sanctuary where adolescent girls, known as her little bears, were sent to live together to prepare for adulthood. At the time of life, they were approaching womanhood. Artemis was with girls in that precious time of freedom and wild innocence before their domestication, and they had to become wives and be part of the social order in a new way. Artemis was most likely there for me, teaching lessons of resilience and nurturing the ability to weather my discomfort as I experienced really bad cramps during my periods when I was younger. And she was definitely there for me as I ferociously chewed on ice and witnessed the wonder of my body's natural ability to deal with the shuddering waves of labor, deliver a pulsing newborn human creature, Earth Angel Aries child, separate from me but forever connected. Yes, Artemis is there at the powerful and bloody portals of re-identification when you transform from one thing into another. 1999 was the year. My mom and I spent a few hours tramping through ruins, the howling winds of the sacred island of Delos. We arrived early in the morning from Mykonos, that's the way you have to do it, with a small boatload of tourists. And at some point between the museum and the terrace with the stone lions, I turned around and Mom was gone. But her disappearance didn't alarm me. She was always getting lost or deliberately straying from the beaten path. Because for my mom, an organized day and a methodical approach to anything is boring with a capital B. There has to be a maze of unplanned paths and cosmic connections, of getting lost and found again, of meeting strangers, discussing why matriarchy turned to patriarchy, or the origins of belly dancing, or the etymology of the name Vasily. And for those of you interested, Vasily means royalty or king, but also base of the sun, vaso donilio. This time, I figured Mom had set off in search of the one person on the island that she could get a coffee from, because the island's cafeño, or coffee shop, was closed for the winter. But as I walked back around the sacred lake, I saw Mom's dark head materialize from behind a hill. It was glistening like a seal against the backdrop of the raging blue Aegean Sea. She joined me over by the lions, and Mom told me she'd gone off to dip her body in the bracing surf, as she liked to do on all Artemis islands. Being a Sagittarius called Diana, Mom considers Artemis her direct patron goddess, and she never passes on an opportunity to put her body into waters relating to the Virgin Huntress. True story. Afterwards, she stood naked at the wind-whipped edge of the island and anointed herself with oil, the oil concoction she always keeps on hand in her purse. Then, with her skin still damp and slick with salt and oil, she pulled her clothes back on and wandered back into civilization. And together we walked through the remains of walls, beside the ancient mosaics of waves and dolphins, alongside the red poppies spilling out of ancient urns, until I lost her again by the temple of Isis. And glancing around, I caught a glimpse of her small, energetic form leaning into the wind as she made her way up the mountainside at the center of Delos. And eventually I followed suit, trudging up the carved mountainside path to meet her. But when I reached the tiny apex, Mom was nowhere in sight. And again, I didn't worry. I figured she had found a less conventional way to descend from the summit. And yes, indeed, she had found a way down that required her to grip the rocks with her toes and hang sideways like a goat. And I told her that she was always like a goat, charging ahead when everyone else seemed to lag, or pulling back when others were in the lead. In no case was she going to travel with the pack. Somebody has to lead and the others follow, Mom shrugged in reply. Back in Athens the following day, I saw 2 small stones on her bedside table. There was one black and one white, and I recognized them as they matched the basalts, the stones of Delos. She had taken as souvenirs a rock from the sea and a rock from the mountain, the highest and lowest points of Artemis's island. So as always, Mom had battled the wind between extremes and brought back a story. I love that story. And in the course of researching this podcast, I learned about a concept called, as I said, psychogeography. And it's the idea that there are laws and effects of the geographical environment that, consciously or not, impact the emotions and behaviors of individual. Like, if you were born in New York City, you're impacted by the way streets are laid out in a grid, or the tall skyscrapers around you have an impact on your worldview. Or if you were born on a tiny island in the Atlantic Ocean, with a relatively small population, that's definitely going to affect your thinking and your life path according to your unique blueprint. You might love being on the tiny island, or you might want to get the hell off of it. Writers know that the idea of place is incredibly important to story. An understanding of place greatly affects any character you're creating. And within this framework, we can look to the circumstances of Goddess Artemis's conception and birthplace for clues about her wisdom keys. So the backstory to Artemis's conception is that Artemis's father Zeus had laid with her mother Leto against her will, as was that was his deal, right? For many, many poor mortal women. And Zeus's wife, Hera, was angered and blocked the pregnant Leto from finding safe haven. She couldn't find any welcome or anywhere to give birth to the twins that were conceived by this unwanted union. But she never gave up. Leto wandered alone, far and wide, rejected from places she tried to nest. Finally, she found a place to land on a deserted, uncharted kind of land raft drifting in the sea. This undiscovered place had its own wild origin story. This place had once been a nymph who, rather than couple with Zeus, who was pursuing her, she flung herself into the sea. And she fell like a shooting star. Her name was Asteria, which means star in Greek. She was transformed into an untethered spot on the sea that was blown around by the winds. Leto followed her instincts and found safety on this undomesticated and shifting spot to birth Artemis. So in terms of geography, you already feel a sense of movement embedded in the Artemis energy, this strong will to live and an ability to make a home out of a strange place and create beauty there. Asteria was an undomesticated space outside of common knowledge. It was unattached to either mainland or seabed. It wasn't strictly land, nor was it island. It belonged to no one but itself. And when Leto alighted there, 4 columns grew up to anchor the site to the earth beneath the water. With the arrival of Leto, this pregnant woman in labor, Asteria transformed into Delos, an established sacred spot that could now be located in space and visible to all. So what I'm saying is that Artemis was born on Delos, which was previously known as Asteria, and once Leto found it, it stabilized and became the center, like a belly button, central to the human body, energetically connected to the original nourishment of our mother's wombs. Delos is the center point of the Cyclades Islands. So if you look on a map of the Greek islands, there are different areas, and it's the center of the Cyclades. And Cyclades, just as the island changed identity, changed from Asteria to Delos and became a new version of itself. So that's how Leto went from wandering outcast to protected mother of Artemis. Long story short, Artemis went on to avenge every person who had ever wronged her mother or cast her out. And it's in with the energetic blueprint of this geography that Leto gave birth to Artemis and her twin brother, Apollo. We'll talk about him another time. But as Artemis was born, her laboring mother hugged a sturdy palm tree for support. The nymphs sang and wild swans flew. And once Artemis was delivered, she immediately turned around and became midwife and helped her mother give birth to their twin, Apollo. So again, Artemis reminds us of the healing power of nature and that we have come out of balance by living in an over-civilized materialist culture. And in some ways, even our bodies are foreign to us. They're constantly objectified, and they're adorned by brands and outsourced as advertisement. And one of the healing practices I do besides Reiki and Qigong is carry on my mother's work of teaching and sacred performance of belly dance. Artemis energy helps me understand and teach belly dance as a primal movement practice that can help a person connect, love, and move from their sacred center. And this in turn helps them feel their power and helps them feel more alive. And in many ways, the movement patterns of belly dance mirror cosmic geography and energies of the universe, like spirals and waves and lemniscates and circles and figure eights and vibrations like shimmies that help you rediscover and reclaim yourself and your body and your wildness as a path to greater balance and wholeness. And in the process, you discharge stress and anxiety, and you rediscover the innocent aliveness of this naturally harmonized body, mind, and spirit. And just as Artemis's mother Leto never gave up, and wild as it was, found a safe and protected place to land and birth her children, I hope you can find a safe, stable place within yourself so you can adventure anywhere and still feel at home. And I hope you establish, believe, and embody that wherever you stand is sacred ground, and that your body is a divine aspect of nature and deserves the most respect and care you can give her. So in order to keep smiling and feel more and more alive, remember the energy, creations, joys, and sorrows of your adolescent self, the time when you were one of Artemis's little bears. Remember those dreams you had at that time and the exciting feeling of your youthful wildness. Tap into the things that give you and gave you pleasure at that time. Stay open to trying new, unfamiliar things. All right. Thank you for joining me on this Artemis reflection. In the course of researching and thinking about Artemis, many wild things did happen to me. One stranger told me all about the many bird songs that he knew about from bird watching for his entire life in the town I live in. Another man told me about his uncles who used to catch snakes and could suck the poison out of them. All kinds of wild stories like spontaneously were told to me in the course of this Artemis podcast. This is happening with every podcast I've done. There's been some kind of synchronous stories that have happened, synchronicities, and it's just so fascinating. And I really thank you for joining me and for listening. Please like and subscribe to Awakening Airwaves, and you can visit my website, speakeasyreiki.com, and it'll be in the show notes to work with me or to learn more about my offerings in the healing realms. So thank you again, and may we all be free to roam and discover with harm to none. May Mother Earth and the wilderness be protected from exploitation that is out of balance. And may we all find safety. And may we all be true to ourselves. Thank you again. Bye, everyone.